All right, well, I know you guys have all heard the saying uh, that marriage is a job. Marriage is hard, right? I mean, you've all heard these things. So whether you're married or not, you've heard that marriage is very difficult. For the men who are not married or have never been married before, you've heard it, and it's probably scared you away from a relationship. And for the men who are married or have been married, you know firsthand exactly what that can be like. And honestly, marriage can be extremely difficult, but it can also be pretty simple if both parties are willing to work together. The only time marriage becomes very difficult is when one person is willing to put in the maximum effort into making the relationship work, and then the other one does not care at all. That to me is what makes marriage difficult. It's finding that right balance. It's finding ways to connect and communicate correctly when there's just things in life that have changed, and it's always trying to figure out a way to stay on the same page, right? Well, the one thing I've thought about for myself and is just really recognizing that it gets easier when you are able to let go of the selfishness, right? People are so selfish by nature. It's just a natural thing for people to be selfish. And it's sad because we all want our own things, right? We all have wants. I want this, I want that. And those things can end up weighing heavier than the needs of the marriage. And I say the needs of the marriage, right? Not the wants of the marriage, the needs of the marriage. And those selfish things can become so heavy where you stop focusing on what is needed for the marriage. Now, it doesn't mean you're gonna, constantly just take it over and over and over, right? But there has to be a certain type of balance there in order for the marriage to work. So again, marriage, yes, it can be very difficult, very challenging because there's so many obstacles, so many things that come up through the course of a day, the week, a month, a year, and people change. Sometimes the things that they used to like, they don't like anymore, and the things that they didn't like, they now like. And so you're having to make those adjustments to get used to the things that they like now, or the things that they don't like. The things that used to make them laugh don't make them laugh anymore. Now it's just really irritating. And so it's like now you're trying to figure out, well, do I need to change for this person? Do I need to fix something? Or I'm not changing for this person. I'm not doing this for this person. And I think that's where it gets really challenging. So it's like people aren't willing to give the time and the effort into the marriage that it really requires. I mean, it's a full-time job, as I said before. Literally, when you go to a job in general, you're working hard from beginning to end, right? If you're just a regular employee at that job, they have assignments for you to do almost all day. Why is that? Because the business has to run. There's a lot of moving pieces that are required in order for the business to be successful, and you are one of those links. And if your job is not being taken care of correctly, or you're lacking on your job, or you're not, giving it the effort that it's supposed to be, guess what ends up happening? They let you go. Right? And if too many people are doing that, then eventually the business doors end up closing because they weren't able to sustain the way that they thought for profitability. So what's the difference in marriage? Tell me. There is no difference because I already know. Marriage is not a business, but it has similarities because again, if one person is putting in the effort, you'll see. If another person's not putting in effort, you'll see. If both people are willing to work together, like in a business, right? You have a person who works for operations and you have another person who works in sales. Those two parts of the business don't usually work well together. So it takes the management team to find a way to come together so that they can move forward with the vision and the mission of that business. It's the same thing in a marriage. You have to find a way to move forward. One person is sales, one person's operations, and you guys have completely different mentalities of how things need to be done. But as long as you can sit down together and find that lane, that sweet spot on how things need to happen, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be completely happy about everything, but it does mean that things can still move forward. And over time, as long as you're consistent in those areas, then it just gets easier. So the faster you're able to learn how to let go of the selfishness, the ego and all those things, the faster that your marriage can start to blossom. And those hard moments will no longer be hard. They'll be a lot easier. Now you're going to move from new levels to new levels over time, but that's just a natural part of life, right? Just like a business, when a business scales, they go through growing pains, just like in marriages. It's the same thing too, but it all depends on who you have in that business or in that marriage. Do you have two people who are fighters and they're like, look, come hell or high water, we are going to put in all the time and effort that we need to make this work? Or is someone going to give up somewhere along the way? And then if you do, then just know it's going to be extremely difficult for that to be the case. So then when people say, yes, marriage is hard, I can understand why, because someone's not putting in the full effort that it takes. And it doesn't mean that, oh, just because you're putting in full effort, that's going to be perfect. I'm not saying that at all, right? But what I am saying is it can be easier to navigate the issues of life, and so that when you are dealing with the marriage itself, it's easier to talk through those things when there's problems that are going on in general, right? So if you got life issues, but you two are working together, then there's nothing that can stop you guys. It might be hard. You might cry a little bit, right? But working together through life's issues only makes it so much easier. You don't want the problems where not only are you dealing with life issues, but now you're dealing with your spouse. Like, that is freaking terrible. And men, I mean, we have the authority and the power to make things really well in our homes, right? It doesn't mean you have to just constantly agree with your wife to make things better, but really listen, really take some time and put some effort into what can be done to make the marriage better. Like, how do you make it grow? How do you make it go from the place where it started, which is really exciting, to a new place where, you know, you guys have grown so much together. When you look back at what you've done, you can see all the accomplishments that you made through all the trials and the tribulations. And so for me, for men who say it's hard or they've given up on their marriage, like, it just shows me the selfishness. And I know that firsthand because I was selfish. I was selfish in my last marriage. I was really frustrated about how things were going and how things didn't go. And so at the end of the day, when two people separate, it's because of selfishness, no matter what. Even if you've been cheated on, even if you've been hurt any type of way. Now, domestic violence, I think that's a whole different story. Like, I am not into any of that stuff. But everything else, I mean, even that still can be worked on and through. It's really just comes down to, are both people willing to put in the time and effort that it takes to work on their marriage? And so when people give up or they say, you know, I'm done with marriage, I'm not doing this anymore, I think it's because they've wanted their way for such a long time. And now that they're single, they can do it exactly how they want. Live your life. But I enjoy my marriage. I enjoy being married. It's really fun. It can be very, very difficult at times because we do have our selfish moments, but we work on those things every single day. We work on recovering faster from tough conversations and just learning how to communicate better and more effectively, right? So it's like we learn the tones, we learn how to say things, we learn how to use the right words. And that's all what we should be doing every single day to work in growing your marriage. Your wife, if you're married right now, your wife is not the enemy. Satan is the enemy, and all he wants to do is make you think that the person that you're looking at is the problem. Well, she's not. It's the person that's behind her that's causing the issue. And if you can really take your focus off of her and recognize that she isn't the issue, even though her mouth might say otherwise, then you have a fighting chance. But if you constantly look at her as a problem or she's looking at you as a problem, and you guys both haven't recognized that it's not about y'all, then it's going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult. And I pray that whoever is listening to this right now, that you take something away from this and just know, like, look, it takes two to tango, right? You've heard that term before. It takes two to tango. And for men, you guys set the tone. You guys create the opportunities for that to happen. You guys create the foundation for that to happen. You guys look at the vision of your home and what tweaks do you have to make that work? And before you know it, in time, it could be a year, 2 years for things to work out. Just depends on how deep some of those issues are. But you can start working on that now. It's never too late to make the change in your life to make your marriage better. And again, for brothers who aren't married right now or have been divorced, it's the same thing for you. Like, you just got to start looking at this now before you get into that relationship so that you have the right tools and you can be very effective in making your marriage blossom. So, on that note, guys, have an amazing day, and we'll talk soon. Later.